From the 22 News Plus studio, this is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's edition of In Focus. We're here in the 22 News Plus studio. I'm very happy and lucky to be joined by Massachusetts State Senator John Velis. John, thank you so very much for joining me.
Good to be here, my friend. Great seeing you.
It is. You know, you and I haven't done this since my old radio days at the Westfield News Group, about a decade ago.
It's bringing me back.
Nice to have you.
It's bringing me back. Great seeing you.
You are very busy, not only in your own district, but with everything that's going on Beacon Hill. There are so many things to start and talk about. Yeah. But I do want to start with the polarization as we stand here in 2025 of politics.
Oh.
Me, as a general citizen, I've had enough.
Yeah.
I don't even know how you put up with it as an elected official. Do you see it as bad as we do?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
So there used to be a day in the not too distant past when I could knock on someone's door, which I believe that human interaction, those meaningful connections, are the most important part of not just politics, human relations. And I could look people in the eye and say, look, when I go to bed at night, I firmly believe that both a Democrat and a Republican are capable of a good idea. And that was something that everybody loved and everybody embraced for so long. Now, when I say that statement, people sometimes look at me like, wow, that's crazy. You actually believe that? Yes, I do.
And absolutely. I mean, there are great ideas from everyone. There is no one individual who's the smartest man or woman on earth.
You're not going to like this, but I'm going to exclude you folks. And I attribute a lot of this to, well, a couple things. You've got social media and the algorithms, right? Mm-hmm. So much of our news today, right, which is why I think this is really important, having a local news like this, but is driven by algorithms.
Right.
And it's the extreme, the vicious. That stuff gets placed in front of people over and over again. For those of us who play in the middle, the centrists that want to bring people together, that doesn't sell.
No.
It doesn't sell.
It's not interesting.
It's not interesting. And I also, in many respects, fault the media. And here's what I mean by that.
No, I agree with you.
Is that the media loves having folks on. Again, I can't stress this enough. Present company excluded, you folks. But they love having folks on that kind of play into those algorithms, the most extremes on all sides. And those of us who have always said, hey, let's sit down, let's work together. Some of my best friends in the Senate are the Republicans.
Right.
I work with them constantly. Some of my best friends are the Democrats. We need to get back to a point in time where that centrism, that working together, putting the welfare of everyone else in front of yourself is most important. We got a lot of work to do.
It's interesting. We start with that conversation because there have been a number of think tanks around the country and actually around the planet who look at those extremes. And there's such a small portion of the population.
And that's what's so frustrating.
Most people are centrist.
And that's what's so frustrating. Right. They punch above their weight. They're a very vocal, strident minority. Right. But because of the fact that sells, it gets clicks. That's what's constantly showing up. And we have to deal with that because we are at a point. Look, recent events are absolutely horrific, morally reprehensible. There is no space for political violence at all, period.
None.
I don't care about party politics, who you are, what you do. My heart breaks for everyone who is a victim of this, their families. We got to do better.
Well, and you know what? That also is a great segue to one of your primary positions within state legislature is mental health. Because I look at, these shootings, whether it's just God, here we are, late September. What have we had? 50 students in schools since Labor Day, basically, who have been victim, whether killed or injured in a school shooting. Those are mental health problems.
Absolutely.
Those are mental health problems. The shooter has a mental health issue. So on the state and local level, what are you as a state senator? How are you working with your colleagues on both sides of the aisle to address it?
So one of the first things that we just did, and I'm really happy to say, one of the main bills, and I was one of the lead proponents of this, was banning cell phones at schools. Like cell phones, if you go into a school today, you're going to see something that was just foreign to me in my time.
Oh, you and me both. I use an encyclopedia, John.
You're going to see a group of kids sitting there. And instead of maybe when you and I were in school, when we're talking about, sports games, we're talking about parties, we're talking about girls, boys, whatever your cup of tea is, etc. And now it's just on that phone.
Right.
So there's 3 reasons we did that. 3 reasons that I think I led on this, right? Mental health, anxiety levels, depression, suicidal ideations are through the roof.
Yeah.
So the mental health reasons. There's the academic performance reasons. If you are looking at your phone during class, you are not paying attention. And we have data that shows us that schools who did not have a ban and then implemented a ban, their academic performance went up.
But do you think, and again, I look at going back, even though I'm pushing 60 years old, in my head, I'm still a teenager, right? And I think most of us are. If you're banning something, that makes me want it more, So, and kids are going to come up with creative ways. So rather than ban it, are there ways to, I don't know, like put out a signal, like in a school that eliminates certain actions? Because I think it's beneficial for teachers to teach how to use your tablet, your phone. Use it for good, not evil, for lack of a better description.
And so I want to be very clear. What we did is we gave schools wide discretion to say, come up with a policy that prohibits unsanctioned use of that cell phone in school. So
that works.
Absolutely, if it's a signal, if it's anything, the reality is this: we are not going back to the days when cell phones, now with AI, the cat is out of the bag and it's not going back.
Right.
But the data is so serious. The data is profound. And the other thing I didn't even mention, I said academic performance, behavioral health. How about just inability to socially interact? Look someone in the eye, just suffer from that. So cost benefit analysis, there's studies out there that the average student spends almost 2 hours a day in school on their phone.
Right.
They're going to do whatever they're going to do outside of the school. Hopefully parents, guardians, etc. say, put that down a little bit. Go outside. Go play basketball. Go do something. But there's a way to do it. Media literacy, using it as a force for good. But in the actual school day, if it's not part of a lesson, you got to get them out of there.
Right. And it's funny, you're a dad, I'm a dad, but we see it when we drive. Our kids, they parrot us. They see what we do. They mimic us. And I see it driving around. I mentioned it. Parents on their cell phones while driving, kids in the back seat or the front passenger seat.
Absolutely. There's no way to get around it. And it's a great point, though. I think we as adults, we focused on the schools because that's something we can impact. But I know my little guy, Carson, is looking at his dad and he's looking at his mom.
Absolutely.
So when we're talking to him, when we're having dinner, when we're doing whatever we're doing, I need to be mindful of the fact I can't tell him and the kids in Massachusetts schools that this is dominating your life and it's a force for bad, primarily a force for bad. I get there are some good uses of it, and then be on my phone constantly.
Exactly.
And we all, certainly me, have to look in the mirror as we're doing this too.
Absolutely.
And again, go out, go take a walk, go do something. I'll give you one anecdote, and it's from one of the schools in my district. Before they had a ban, they didn't have a ban, and now they do. And what the superintendent told me is that during gym class, a lot of students at this school were forgetting their gym clothes. Just many of them, a significant portion, forgetting their gym clothes. What happened is that if you forget your gym clothes, you can go in the bleachers and you can use your phone and you can scroll your phone. They implemented a ban.
So they're forgetting their gym clothes.
And guess how many students unforgot their gym clothes when they put that ban in? And then they're running around the track and they're doing
they're
things.
Exercising.
They're exercising. They're doing things that we know contribute to physical and mental health. And maybe it's going to get at some of this stuff that we're seeing in this world right now.
Absolutely. We are up on our first break. We're here with State Senator John Velis. We'll be right back after this.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry. This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Welcome back to this edition of In Focus. I'm here in the 22 News Plus studio with State Senator John Velis. Senator, thank you very much for joining me today. Greatly appreciate it. We've covered a lot of ground so far. The next thing I want to talk about is the drug crisis in Massachusetts. I know, you and I had this conversation on radio about a decade ago. The opioid crisis was out of control,
Yeah.
literally out of control. We were, every city and community within our Commonwealth was addressing it. First off, is that still an issue? I don't hear much of it anymore.
It's awful because we're
Okay,
still,
it's still awful.
it's awful. We've gotten some good numbers from DPH. The numbers have gone down marginally, but the numbers compared to, say, 15 years ago are still astronomical.
Wow.
So what's happened now is that we would refer to as an opiate crisis, right? And right now, it's that aperture has been widened. So one of the things that I'm currently doing right now is I'm leading a drug contamination commission, if you will, xylazine, other drug contaminants. So what's going on right there on the street right now is a lot of times someone will purchase a narcotic, and what they think they are getting is most certainly not what they are getting. And xylazine is interesting for any number of reasons. It's an animal sedative, and it's leading to situations where someone will think they're getting an opiate. Xylazine is not an opiate. It is, again, approved for animals, for
For
cats,
veterinary use,
and
yeah.
it's putting people to sleep. They're becoming the victims of sexual violence. They're getting robbed. It's leading to amputations because if you do it, it's causing injection. If you use it either in injection form or some other way, it's leading to amputations, infections.
Nice.
It is pulverizing communities, and it's not something that's responsive to Narcan, which makes it thing. So the drug supply right now in America, forget about Massachusetts, is the most contaminated it's ever been today. And that scares me for so many reasons.
This is the first I've ever heard. What's it called? Xylazine?
Xylazine.
So this is the first I've ever heard of it.
It reared its head in Philadelphia and Puerto Rico, and now it's all over. It's all over the place. And it's a cutting agent. It's called an emerging contaminant. And the reality is this: by the time I walk out of here and get to my car, there will be some other emerging contaminant that's
It's
out
constant.
there. And the main reason I think it's important we talk about this, and it really scares me as it relates to kids, is that you'll hear over and over again. So I spend a lot of time talking to my friends in law enforcement, and they'll tell stories of making an arrest where they have pressed pills, this new phenomenon where someone might think they're buying, fill in the blank pill, whatever it may be. And it's really a pill that is counterfeit, and it's filled with fentanyl.
So it's
Xylazine.
taking different substances and creating a press pill.
And
you think you're getting one thing, but you're getting probably an amalgamation of a bunch of drugs.
and people are dying. And where is this trade happening? Well, our previous segment, social media. There is a thriving drug trade right there. And my concern is this, is that there are any number of high school kids and younger, all human beings who are out there right now. They might not even be someone who we would consider to be in the throes of an addiction, right? They just do something because they want to do something at a party. Things are going around and they think they're doing X and they think it's Y and they die.
Right.
So what I tell everybody is unless you get a pill at a CVS, a Walgreens, from a doctor, do not go near it.
Right.
It is so contaminated out there and it's awful. We are losing people. But to your point, the numbers have gone down marginally, but that's just because we've done such a great job getting Narcan out into communities. Virtually everyone has it. So we're saving lives.
And I think also, again, over the last 10 to 15 years, because it's been such a crisis, I think the public is more attuned to it.
Absolutely.
But this xylazine thing is,
and that's just,
to your point, by the time you get back to the car, there's something else out there.
So the main thing that I think this commission needs to do is that a big part of this is awareness. I want, whether you go to a bar, and there's some states have done some cool things where it'll literally a booster that you would put a beer on will tell you if you're thinking about doing X, Y, and Z, just know that it's likely got fentanyl in it. Billboards, raising awareness, letting people know that, if you want to engage in this behavior, fine, but just know that there are serious, serious risks that you might not come back from.
It's interesting with the Massachusetts passing and legalizing marijuana, you go back in time before all that happened, there was the risk of, you don't know what you're getting because you're buying this stuff on the street from, who God knows who. But by legalizing marijuana, I think it may have eliminated that risk of laced marijuana.
There's still there's still a thriving black market in marijuana.
Really?
There is. So that still exists, but more and more people are going to these facilities. I think that's a whole other topic, the drug decriminalization. What are the actual impacts that it has? But there's challenges in that space that we could spend a lot of time talking about. But the main concern from my perspective is that we just need to, listen, I'm not naive, right? God bless DARE. I think it's a great program and it has its place, right? You know, what they're teaching in schools, God bless. I think it's really important. But the reality is this, is that there are many moms and dads and guardians out there who think that their loved one would never engage in this.
Right.
They will.
Oh, absolutely.
And they do. So we just need to get out there in a very raising awareness way that if you want to do this, be afraid of the risk. And some might say, well, scaring people into submission, is that the good thing? Well, yeah, if you give me a choice between scaring someone to dying, yeah, I'm going to choose that all day long.
Absolutely.
Because it's contaminated. Again, it's been referred to, these aren't my words, the most contaminated drug supply by the Attorney General we've ever had.
Let's switch gears a little bit. I want to bring up something that, because you're an active service member for our United States military, you have proposed, and I believe you're on a committee for the and I don't even know the exact title, but I'm gonna dumb it down for my terms. The head of the Massachusetts National Guard. Is that a general, adjutant? I don't even know. But you're in a group that wants that position to be a cabinet position of the governor. Why?
So, just, I guess, by way of background. So there's two kind of ways that I'm involved in this space. I'm the chair in Massachusetts of the Veterans and Federal Affairs Committee, as well as the National Guard Caucus, which is a group of lawmakers that are getting together to advocate for the National Guard. So if you look at what's going on in the country right now, if you look at the past 4 years, right, look at our National Guard. So separate and distinct from fighting wars, which Massachusetts National Guard, Iraq, Afghanistan, and all conflicts. They've been at soldiers' homes. They've been bus drivers. They have quelled riots. The list goes on and on and on. So to not have the tag, the adjutant general, sitting at a table with the governor, so the most timely, efficient information could be given to that governor about what that need is in this very fast changing, dynamic environment where things are happening all the time, I think is really important. There's another reason, and this goes to chain of command issues. I have something embedded in my mind that will never go away. So after everything that happened, both at the Chelsea and Holyoke Soldiers Home, I was on a committee whose job it was to look into this. And I posed a question to the current National Guard. And I said, look, there was a request. So if you go back in time to this very difficult time on the Friday before the weekend where a lot of stuff happened that resulted in us losing a lot of service members, a request was made from the Holyoke Soldiers Home to bring in the National Guard to help. They put out an SOS, we need help. I asked the question to the TAG at the time, what happened with that request? The Adjutant General, the head of the National Guard. I said, what happened with that request? His response is what will be seared in my mind. We never got it.
Wow.
So at some point in time, I attribute it to a breakdown in what we refer to as the chain of command.
Yeah.
There were too many people
between him and the governor.
So we need to create a system where if something is needed, there is that ability to say, hey, we need it. Can you get your folks there immediately, yesterday? And I think it's a really big deal. And I thought it was a really big deal 9 months ago. Now we've got the National Guards in the news all the time now for various things. Just a really important thing to get that elevated to a cabinet level position. And the last thing I would say is that Massachusetts is one of only 2 states that doesn't have it right now. So I think it's really important.
Interesting. Yeah, it's kind of a no-brainer. We're here with State Senator John Velis. We're up on our second break. We'll be right back after this.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry. This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Welcome back, everyone, to today's edition of In Focus. I'm here with State Senator John Velis. Senator, thank you very much for joining me today. I know you're a busy man, but I do appreciate your time.
Everyone's busy, my friend. Everyone's busy.
I know. It seems like it's nonstop. The one thing I do want to address in our last few minutes is living in the Bay State, affordability of living in the Bay State. Yeah, I look at my kids, they're in their 20s. I don't know if they will ever be able to afford a home. So are you and your fellow legislators on Beacon Hill, what are you working on to make homeownership achievable for the younger kids?
So there's two things. This is something that quite literally keeps me up at night. And I think we as lawmakers need to get to a point, and this is something that I say, there's a lot of issues out there, and I don't want to minimize, trivialize them and say they're not important, but I would call them second and third tier issues. The almost exclusive focus of Massachusetts government right now should be the affordability of this Commonwealth. You just mentioned your kids. I've got concern about my kid.
Who's a lot younger than my kids.
Who's a lot younger. Things like housing, things like groceries, things like everything involved in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So the good news is this. We passed a housing bond bill last legislative session, investing billions of dollars in it, and it's build, build, build. There's a second problem with that, though. Massachusetts government is way too slow.
Absolutely.
Inefficient. One thing that I will frequently say that if it takes a decade, sometimes more, from the time we as lawmakers show up an event to do a groundbreaking to when we come back to do a ribbon cutting, we will never, ever get out of this housing crisis. So one of the things that I've been pushing hard in trying to kind of impart this mindset, if you will, is that some of the red tape, if you will, some of the bureaucratic nonsense that makes it hard to build, hard for your average person to do something, is absolutely killing us. But here's why it's changed. Let me just say this. Here's why it's changed. One of the things that COVID has taught us, so Massachusetts, whether it's healthcare, technology, high-speed rail, all these other things that are out there, are draws, right? And obviously, high-speed rail we haven't done. But the reality is this. If it goes that long, and it takes us that long to do something, people are going to leave. And
right. People are already leaving the state.
People are already leaving. We have data. This isn't a myth. People are leaving. Right. But one of the things that COVID taught us is that you can work for a Massachusetts company from Tennessee, from North Carolina,
from Australia,
and zoom in and teams in from Australia. Yeah. So everything being done needs to be about affordability because we are losing people.
So one of my concerns is, and you've probably had similar conversations with developers, okay? And I've talked to one, we both know this person out of Westfield, and he said it does not make financial sense to build a house less than 2,500 square feet for less than 450 that you're going to retail for 450 grand.
Yeah,
that's not helping.
No, it's not.
But to his point, he goes, because supplies are so expensive, he goes, that's what I have to build to even break even or make a profit.
So much of this is basic economics, supply and demand. Right now, demand far exceeds supply. We don't have enough housing stock. So those prices, I am of the belief, will go down if we build. And a big part of that, too, is local government. There are so many restrictions in place. The whole NIMBY thing, that stuff. Everybody recognizes we have a housing crisis. That's impacting all of us.
Everybody
But when you get into, can we build here? There's another thing, too, that this developer that I'm sure we both know. There is this mindset. A developer, the number of conversations that I've had will say, a government will give them an incentive to build. Mm-hmm. But it's not an incentive to do anything other than affordable housing. So they'll look at it and say, okay, you want me to build, but I'm not going to make a dime from this project.
Right.
So we have to we have to be able to hold competing thoughts at once. That it's okay if, God forbid, a builder makes money, which we should be encouraging.
Right.
But we also need to recognize that whether it's market rate housing, affordable housing, or any other form of housing, when you build one, it helps the other part of it. It alleviates a bottleneck that we're seeing in Massachusetts. Right. So all housing we need to build. Local government, they need to get out of the way and allow folks to build. Folks need to welcome these because the reality is this. There are so many people who might be on their face opposed to building in their district. But they're also going to tell you the same thing you led with me with that. I'm not sure my kids will ever be able to a home. We can't have our cake and eat it too. We either talk to other states, which I spent a lot of time doing, and the restrictions that we have in place are insane compared to some of the other states. Affordability is the most important issue facing the Commonwealth. We are at an inflection point where it's going to be, we are going to continue to see the number of people that are already leaving. The best data we have is folks who are 20 to 40 years old. just starting out.
Exactly.
And what they're saying is, I'm never going to be able to afford a home here, to your point.
Even those starter homes are overpriced.
They're insane. Or they're here and they're leaving because they can do things from afar. And we need to be, if we don't acknowledge that and talk about it, again, I want to be very clear. There are other important issues out there. And I'll just bring up a recent example. Like, pardon all of the emails and the phone calls I've gotten. If the changing of the state flag is something that keeps you up at night, I don't know what to tell you. I want to talk about affordability of Massachusetts, and we should be focused on that with laser-like precision.
Absolutely. Great way to end it. State Senator John Velis, thank you so very much for your time today. I hope you'll come back and join me on 22 News plus InFocus at a future date.
You got it, my friend. Great being with you.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.